Hey everyone, the topic of this video is for loops. So example 1 says to print values in the following list, first using iteration by index, which is an incremental for loop, and then using iteration by item, which is a for in loop. So first we'll start off with our incremental for loop, for I in range 0, 2, and then we'll use the len function, which stands for length, which is the size of the fruits list, len fruits, and then we'll simply print fruits at index I. And that will print out all values in that list. Then iteration by item, we can say for fruit in fruits, print fruit. And that will print the same thing. Now these for loops are interchangeable, but sometimes one may be more practical to use than the other. So if you're dealing with indices, you definitely need an incremental for loop, but if you're not dealing with indices, a for in loop may be better, which seemed to be the case for this problem. For the next problem, an incremental for loop may be better. So example 2 says, given a list of ones, square each number's index adjusted for 0 in the list. Finally, print the list. So we're dealing with indices, so yeah, we do need to use an incremental for loop here. We just couldn't do that with a for in loop. So we'll say for I in range 0 to the size of the series list again, and then we'll say series at I becomes I adjusted for 0, so we're counting in more human numbers and not computer numbers. We're saying I plus 1 squared, and then we'll print the series list. So at index 1, we have 1, at index 2, we have 4, at index 3, we have 9, and so forth. And again, just to reiterate, lists do start at 0, but just for the purpose of this problem, we're adjusting. The next example says to rewrite the following code using a for loop instead of a while loop. So let's first just kind of see what it's doing. We have a list of characters, a counter variable, an output variable, and our while loop. So while this count is less than the size of this list, we are concatenating each character to the output string and incrementing our counter and index variable by 1. Then we print the output. So if we run this, we see it does just that. It concatenates all of these characters together. So let's rewrite this with a for loop. Now, in this case, I don't think we really need to care about the indices in this list. So this is a good candidate for a for in loop or iteration by item. So let's make an output variable again to reset the last one since the last one was modified. And then we'll say for character in the characters list, output will be concatenated with each character, and then we'll simply print that output string out. And we get the same thing. So this goes to show that all for loops can be rewritten as while loops, and all while loops can be rewritten as for loops. We'll do another example with this, but again, they are interchangeable, but there may be scenarios where we want to use one or over the other, and there may be scenarios where we want to use an incremental for loop over a for in loop and vice versa. So you'll get a hang of when to use what. Our final example says to rewrite the following code using a while loop instead of a for loop. So now we have a for loop, just basic incremental from 0 to 8. One important thing to note is that the range function, its upper bound is exclusive. So this goes from 0 to 8, and we print I. So let's rewrite this using a while loop. We'll probably need a counter variable like usual, count equals 0. And while our count is less than 9, we want to print it out, and then we'll just increment by 1. So let's see what happens when we run both of these. The first one goes to 8, 0 to 8, which is good, and our while loop goes from 0 to 8, which is good. So that's it for all of our examples, but hopefully you now have a better grasp on for loops versus while loops. You may even have some opinions on which one you like more, but remember to keep an open mind on which one to use, and don't just get stuck with one, because like I mentioned, some may be better when you're dealing with indices, some may be better when you're just dealing with items in a list. All right, so that's it for for loops. We'll see you in the next one.